This is this is nothing special or new. Maybe I Do was directed by Michael Jacobs, stars Emma Roberts, Luke Bracey, Richard Gere, and Diane Keaton. In here, a young couple decide to invite their parents over so they can finally get to know each other and know about the relationship. But when family finds come over and people begin to seem like things are too familiar or maybe a little too comfy with each other, questions are raised and the entire prospect and everything about relationships changes. Rom-coms are something I actually have a really good time with, despite the fact of the stereotype men don't like rom-coms. I've had a pretty good time with them because I grew up with two sisters and a mom and a lot of ladies in my family. So I ended up watching them and learning to appreciate them anyway. So when I see them come up and they have people in them that I like, such as Diane Keaton and Richard Gere from older rom-coms that I watched, such as Runaway Bride and, movies like that, I want to go see them. So I set out to go see this movie. And it's alright. I'm gonna be honest, it's alright. There's nothing special about this, really. I mean, I can't overdo it and say there's a bunch of great things I loved about this movie. It's pretty good. It's pretty by the numbers things we've seen before. And it's not necessarily treading enormously new territory or anything in the process. The main thing I took away from this movie is that it really does have a really good concept. Like the main plot, which I think is really sturdy and firm, that's really good. But it's like they had that good idea, and then when it got to execution along the way, it didn't perfectly work out for them. And I'm not saying this movie's bad. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it's nothing fantastical. There are really funny jokes to hear, like parts where I was laughing really hard. Everyone in here is acting a top-tier performance. I will say Richard Gere at times did feel like he was just phoning it in a little bit and came across maybe a little bit wooden sometimes. But aside from that, the movie has good parts. It's just, it wasn't enough, really, for me to feel like, wow, I went to the theater and I saw Maybe I Do. It was just like, all right, that was a movie that I saw. I spent money on it. There were some good parts in it. Like, I don't want to take away from this movie, but there's not much to say in its defense or for positivity. But I'm going to be positive about it anyway. The script in here, as I said, fairly strong. I'd say in particular the first two acts are the strongest. The third act is where it kind of lost me, and I felt like they're wrapping everything up, and just a lot of choices were made that I didn't care for too much in it. Emma Roberts in here is absolutely fantastic. I love her in this movie. She really gives a really good performance in here. I love that a lot. I think, as I said earlier, everyone does a really good job. And I do like a lot of the gags in here. There's some situations set up and some things that, it's those ones where they're irritating because of what's happening, but it's funny kind of irritating. And I like that. That was fun in here. Other than that, there wasn't much to write home about. It was a pretty by-the-numbers movie that hit beats that I've seen 100 times before. The camera work in here is some of the most boring I have seen in a rom-com in a while. Like, rom-coms have a very simplistic way they're shot. They usually are not stylish. But this was extremely boring. This was lesser than Hallmark. This was just steady cam on a tripod shots, like, all the time. And it just wasn't enough to really keep your eyes wanting to watch it. Also, I'm not a fan of the color grading in here. This film turned out very dark. It looked akin to how Tar looked last year almost at times. And I don't think that's a good choice for a movie like this. I do understand, as in this movie, they tackle some very serious questions, sometimes in a comedic way, but I didn't like that aspect of it. The music in here is pretty funny. It's typical rom-com music, and I think they did a decent job with it. Overall, though, this movie was a pastime. I think that's the best way for me to describe this entire thing as a whole. This movie's a pastime. It's something you're going to sit down, eat popcorn for about 90 minutes for some PG-13 jokes, and you're going to watch some people have some serious moments, some romantic moments, some misunderstandings, as there all are in every single rom-com, basically, ever. And you're going to leave. And that's about all it boils down to, essentially, for me, was that's how the movie felt. And while I found some aspects of it very great, Like, I really do like, in particular, the second act of this movie. I think that's the strongest part of it. There's parts like Richard Gere's character in here. Not only is his performance not too great for me, I hate his character. His character's a dick in this movie. I really hated him. And a lot of the characters here aren't very likable. And I feel like if you can't create extremely likable characters, then I'm not going to be too hot on the movie. The director of this movie, in case you don't know, he hasn't done a lot of film. He's primarily a TV director. And I think that kind of shows there's a lack of cinema-ness to this, I guess you could say. There's not a big sense of movie in it, and that was a bit of an issue for me. So this movie rides a fine line of back and forth, but overall, it was okay. I'm going to give Maybe I Do a 5 out of 10. So, hey guys, as always, so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you all next time.